mystery and horror. The air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. He's alive! He's alive!
Well, hello, all you monster fiends, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive, factoid-filled episode exploring Hollywood's most famous monsters. I am your host, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleeding Marvelous. Say hello, Dan.
Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. You're welcome. That's going to be in your head now forever. Hiya!
Hiya! Thanks for that one.
That's been my earworm. That and the Gary SpongeBob song that woman sung. Oh my god, that was just before TikTok got banned for 12 hours in America.
Oh wow! What a weekend!
Oh, the publicity stunt of it all. Yeah. It's a song that this woman sung. It's about SpongeBob, and Gary and the squid, and it's just insane. And that song will not leave my head. So I tried to listen to Agatha to just try and give me something else. Now it bounces between the two, and it's been 3 weeks since I've listened to either of those songs, but they still feel like they.
It's bad. That is bad. I found it hilarious on Sunday watching all these TikTokers coming out with all these revelations, thinking it's gonna get banned. It didn't.
Oh, honestly, do you know what? I knew it was a publicity stunt when I woke up the morning, checked our numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and then checked to see if their accounts were still there. Some of the people that I follow that are American, and I checked to see if their accounts were still there, and they were still coming up on my FYP, like their videos, and I was like, okay, so I know they weren't deleting their accounts.
No.
And I know their app went dark, was supposed to go dark, so they couldn't use it or access. However, what sense would it be to not completely close the whole of their accounts to go with?
Well, that's it. They were meant to do it. India did a blackout, complete blackout, deleted everything. Everything went. They didn't. They put messages up saying, we're waiting on the response of Donald Trump. And then when it came back, it was like, thank your president. Look what he's done.
And the fact that this was twofold. You had all of the influencers going around going, well, just so you know, I never drank that coffee I used to talk about being the best coffee ever. And you had all those guys. And then on the back end, when we actually had those 12 hours where they weren't here, you had all the Brits, the Canadians, and the Aussies, and all the guys from New Zealand at the order, and everybody was just like, shh, it's nice and quiet now, isn't it? And then all they've said, all the Americans now they've come back on have said, are we a laughing stock? And why am I only getting British, Canadian, Australian, and New Zealand things on my feed now? And it's like,
they're saying that FYP has gone back to the way it was. They're finding people who they haven't seen for nearly 2 years. So.
Well, now there's a conspiracy theory, and we'll finish talking about this in a minute. I find it highly hilarious. There's a conspiracy theory that they think they're all on a separate server now in the US. The US has a separate server, so they can go dark at any point, whereas everybody in the rest of the world is on this other server, so to speak. So the power play of we can give it to you and we can take it away. It's quite it's there now, this ongoing little threat. But it's the sad thing about it is, right, that's how a lot of people make their money. I don't like being flogged a pair of Hilara trousers or the latest phone thing that you can stick to a fucking window. I ain't interested. If I wanted to, I'll go on TikTok shop and find it. However, I understand.
Cardi right there.
I've got the Cardi in the cupboard. I'm not saying I don't fall for these things, right? Let's be very, very clear. But I just felt so sorry for the people that do not genuine content. They're not trying to sell you something. They're the people that like the thrifters that are showing what they got, or just the people who are making who have made their life. Shared so much of it with you, but they were lucky enough to get monetized to do it, and it took off, and that's how they make their money, and God, this one guy was explaining, he was in the army and he was doing PT session, he was videoing PT sessions. And he started off the year, he told everybody before it went dark how much he made in that 1 year, in 2024, from the beginning to the end. He made $300,000 in revenue just off of his PT videos, when he wasn't in active service.
My goodness.
I was just like,
it has become lifelines for people.
I can see why so many people were devastated if that's the kind of money some of them, I'm not saying they were, but if that was the kind of money that you're looking at, monetization wise. There we go, got there in the end. I can see why so many people were devastated.
Absolutely. I have no issue with monetization, obviously, but it's the games, it's the begging, it's the gifting, and it's so
I don't agree with
distasteful.
you giving people hearts and flowers on lives and shit like that. I don't like it. That makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't particularly like that aspect of it, because it is literally people sitting on a live for 24 hours with just their face. They're not doing anything for it.
Oh, should we say Elphaba? Should we say Elphaba?
I don't really want to say that name, but it is a name within fiction. Who the Oscar nominations came out today. Wicked across the board.
Oh, gross.
Hey, Nosferatu has been nominated.
I'm not surprised. They did think it would be. They did think it would be because of what it is. Oh, and Robert Eggers has announced his new movie. Have you seen?
Yes. Can you pronounce it? Because I can't.
Well, it is werewolf.
It is werewolf.
Wolf.
Yeah.
Wolf. It's supposed to be, I think they said the 1500s. He loves a period drama, doesn't he?
He does them very well.
He does, but there comes a point when every one of them are going to start blending into the other. So is he making a universe? Are we looking at an Eggers universe here? Short of the lighthouse, I know that's very obviously not in the 1500s, but it's still oldie woldy times. So when you look at across the board Nosferatu, you're looking at the witch, you're looking at the aesthetic of the lighthouse. Nosferatu, they all very happy.
The only one who doesn't is Northman. That's the only one that doesn't fit his aesthetic, is North, because it's so bright, it's so colourful, it's Norse. Like, it's just it doesn't fit that kind of era that he's been going for.
But it's still a period.
Oh yeah.
So like
he's very, very fucking good at it.
Yeah, I expect to see the same old faces in it. And I don't mean that with disrespect.
Hey, if he's got Chris Finch in there, I'll be happy. Finchy. Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the Monsters Up North podcast. Today we're going crazy with the Crazies. Yeah.
It's not a biopic of my life.
Had to think there. Kind of is on mine. No, I'm only joking. Before we get started, I do want to say, because I didn't do this on Sunday, and I had the perfect opportunity, because I think at least one of them was in the chat, but I would like to say thank you to the women of nerd culture who gifted me this. Now, my mum thought it was an actual Care Bear. She was like, isn't he such a... And I was like, it's the creature from the Black Lagoon. And she was like, oh, that's amazing. I was like, yes, it is. So thank you so much. He's... what did I name him? Oh, I can't remember. I did have a name for him. Gilly. That was it. Gilly. How could I forget that one? It's Gilman. Gilly. But yes, I just want to say thank you, because I didn't do it on Sunday. But today, like I said earlier, it's the Crazies. So I'm going to do the disclaimer. I'm going to do the intro. And then we're going to get into the Crazies. I just like saying crazy. Phew. Everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us on our socials, our Facebook pages, or the Monsters of North socials, or Bleeding Marvel socials, or in the comment section, where we can have an open discussion. But what we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong, because we can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behavior out of nerdism.
Oh, hell out of here. Don't be a dick.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. So, I wish I'd stop saying that. It's so fucking annoying. So, If I don't do that, I'll go, well. The Crazies is the 1973 and 2010 science fiction horror film written and directed originally by GeorgeARomero and later directed by Breck Eisner. What will a small American town affected by a military biological weapon do when their residents become violent killers? That's what we're going to find out as Monsters Up North brings you The Crazies.
That make you crazy. Yes, it does. That first film.
Yeah.
That first film.
Yeah.
That first film.
It exists, Dan.
It does. And that is my review on that one. Okay, the end. Thank you, goodbye.
So we've got the 1973 and 2010 version of The Crazies. 1973 being done by the amazing, great, late GeorgeARomero, and the 2010 one, like I said, was directed by Breck Eisner, starring the amazing Timothy Oliphant, which we will get into in a bit. And they, for all the films, have a similar story and the remake has some slight nods. They couldn't be further from each other if they tried.
Yes.
So I watched the original on Monday night, fell asleep halfway through it, and finished it off today. Dan?
I watched it yesterday. I did back to back because I like to compare. So I watched the first one and I don't remember 80% of it. And I must have fallen asleep, but I don't remember falling asleep. So I've possibly just gone into some sort of hypnotic state because I couldn't tell you really. I know what happened and I know key points of what happened because I remember those bits, but really it's just a lot of shouting.
A lot of shouting.
Do you know what? The one thing about this film that if I could go and sit down with George and say to him, please never do that again, is the high pitch of the frogs or that it's not a cicada noise, but I don't know what that high whistly animal call noise was that ran through it the whole time. It was so high pitched, and I don't really suffer from misophonia that much. But for some reason, it just touched a nerve in my brain, and it was like, I don't like this. This has to stop. I hate it.
If he wants to make you feel uncomfortable, I don't feel like that's the way to do it. Like, the opening of this movie is incredibly violent. It's quite brutal. It is one man who loses his shit and just kills his family. And that's the opening scene.
And did you know he was actually, I think he was the special effects guy who played the husband.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got it written down here somewhere.
Do you know what? I didn't find a great deal of stuff on this.
No, there really isn't. He genuinely, he was one of the special effects. He was either the special effects master or he was one of the special effects guys. And he played, because everybody in this film are not technically
I know that part.
Actors, stunt people. The main core of the cast it's a union job, and I think last week we talked about union work when we were talking about Hooker. So union work is where if you have a union card, you can take a job within it. But I don't know how George managed to skirt this so that so many people were working on it that weren't union members, but he employed the kids from the high school, the college. He had
firemen.
Real firemen because of the fire at the beginning. He had real just anybody he could find that was like, do you want to be in a movie? They're like, yeah, all right then. And then he'd stick him in a white suit and give him a fake gun.
Oh my God, them guys were amazing. They were, oh my God, talk about dysfunctional. That was not the army. My goodness, they were hilarious.
It was when one of the guys whipped off his mask and he had that really atrocious on, the black Ken doll wig. And when you pause it and you're like,
what is happening to your face?
I know times were different in the 70s, and I know hair care isn't really at the standard that it's at now. But you either have incredibly bad hair or that is one of the worst wigs I've ever seen. I'm still not entirely sure.
There was some really poor decision making on this movie, as in character basis. With the main couple. So this movie is actually like it's very similar to George's other movies. It like I was telling Dan before we came on, it has a social commentary running through it. It is very heavily influenced by the Vietnam War. Um, it's George's way of giving a middle finger to the US in a way. And this movie is actually no different. Completely forgot the point I was going to make there.
No, he does. He has a habit of looking and making
Oh, I
people
know
feel
it now.
uncomfortable on purpose,
Yeah.
George. He likes that whole.
But he also likes a group as well.
He likes
He
a
likes a group.
survival story.
Yeah, he does, and he likes a. That's where I was going with it because he has his main couple who is no different than what you see in Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. The main two people, and these two people at the beginning when they're in bed and that fucking fire alarm's going off, my OCD will not allow me to sit there for 2 minutes longer without having to go and find out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, I couldn't just lay there and pretend it wasn't happening.
No. And the
No.
fact that he turned around and said he was a fire marshal, it got me. I was like, what is wrong with you? Why
As
aren't
he
you
should go.
moving?
Yeah, off you trot. Come on.
Get out.
But as with most of George's characters across the board, I didn't empathize with anyone in this film.
No,
Not
I
one
didn't.
character could stand out for me to go, oh, there was one
bless.
scene that was horrific. And that's later on in the movie, but I wasn't sure if I felt sorry for her, to be honest with you. With what was going on, I'm not sure if she was enjoying it or not, because it was very confusing. But like
you're talking about why has my laptop stopped working? Oh, what's her name?
I wrote it down.
Lynn Lowry.
Yeah.
Lynn Lowry. Oh my goodness. Lynn Lowry has a face that looks like Sissy Spacek.
Yeah, I knew that's
yeah, but she's also I know that face so well because she's in David Cronenberg's what's it called? Slithers? Something like that. Oh, yeah, it's with the aliens in the mouth, and I think that's what it is. Oh, what's it called? Lynn Lowry. 1 second, because it's gonna her face. Shivers.
Shivers. Right.
Shivers, that's it. I'll always remember her from Shivers. Apparently, I can't remember the name of the film, but I do remember her face in that. She looks so much like Sissy Spacek. It's scary.
I think they try and set the scene to let you know that there's this couple. They're very in love. They're very married. They're expecting a baby. I presume they're married. If not, if it's
no, they're not.
Right, it's 1973. So
she says, I feel like if we don't have this baby, you're not going to marry me. I was like, what the fuck are you going to say to someone?
Right.
Good
yeah.
God.
But in 1973, there was probably a bit of I'm not saying it would have been as bad as it was before then, but there was probably a bit of frowny, gossip about that sort of thing. But yeah, I think a lot of it was though the character age as well. Like this initial movie, the first movie, as with any original film, it's going to have its flaws, and then the reboot, the remake will either go back over those and make the film a completely different entity.
Yeah, it can change the feel, and we've seen that last year with some of the ones that we did.
Or
House on Haunted Hill comes to my head straight away.
13 Ghosts, you know.
Yeah.
The Blob. But yeah, this film was hard to watch. Not through the subject matter so much so, even though it's pretty horrific if you're not someone who's as desensitized as me, you know, I can understand why people think it is. I just tuned it out. It's hard. It's a hard film.
It is, and I think what makes there's no element of fear in the original because you are stuck with groups of people all the way through. Whereas, yes, in the remake, you're stuck with groups of people, but you get to see the whole community that is being completely affected by this. There's not a great deal in that. Yeah, there is a montage scene where they're running through houses, and my God, I swear to God, if someone walked through my house the way that they did, there's no way I'd sit and stare at them. I'd be looking for the first, like, I'd be looking for a baseball, but I'd be looking for something to go swinging with. Like, they just sat there and took it. Like, this was completely normal that these
Yeah.
men in fucking hazmat suits were walking through their house.
It was very strange because it was just like the doc because the girlfriend oh God, Judy, right. Judy and David are the two main
What a
characters.
wet funkin' blanket she was. Funkin'?
Yeah.
What? I couldn't even get me
Ju
swears out there.
Judy's basically in this one, she's a nurse in the doctor's surgery. So she goes to work because she gets called in because of the fire that took place at the beginning that was set by the husband. Now, bear in mind, this fire actually really was a property that they needed to control burn down. The fire and
Yeah.
fire brigade actually had to burn down. So George convinced them to let them film
It
a
was
little bit
serendipity for them.
in the beginning of it, and then when they were to burn it down, he was allowed to film the burning down of it, basically. So
Mhm.
it was a free cost to him, really, because he didn't have to pay for that. But
Exactly.
going into this movie, George was 500 grand in debt. 500,000
What
in
was he
debt
putting
going into this
that?
movie. I don't know. I honestly don't know. This movie didn't take off and didn't do exceptionally well because no one no one wanted to pick it up. It wasn't something they thought would be well received because it was coming. I mean, we didn't have Vietnam here. We're not the UK, we
It
weren't
was not our war.
really, it wasn't our war. So it's not something which might surprise some people that we're taught about. It's kind of skimmed
No,
over. You know,
no,
we know at some point in the 60s, early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. I couldn't tell you what years it was without Googling because it's not something we're taught.
no.
But, you know, we know Vietnam was horrific. We know about the MK1 Ultra nonsense. We know about many, many things that were supposed to happen at the time. Um, and this is kind of a take on the MK1 Ultra
Yes, yes. Oh my
side
gosh.
of it, you
It's so
know.
weird. Me and Ant were talking about this the other night because I told him about this movie in the biochemicals and he was like, "Oh, that's very MK Ultra." And I was like, "Do you know what? I actually don't know anything about MK Ultra in like I could give you a brief synopsis, but I couldn't go into great detail. So I actually have saved on my podcast list. Last podcast on the left did a huge series on it because I am interested in that Project Paperclip. Obviously the Manhattan Project, which we know is the atomic bomb, but it's still, you know,
Yeah.
interesting.
The basically what the MK to sum it up really quickly for anybody listening, it is like a sleeper cell thing. It was a drug that they trialed in a lot of their soldiers,
Mhm.
willing or I don't know whether the participants knew what they were getting into, probably not. And it was supposed to be like a super soldier slash serum, like they were trying to get themselves some
They were
Captain America.
trying to make Captain America.
Yeah, and it ended up not going very well. It ended up really hurting the guys that were in the trials and stuff like
Wow.
that. But it was something to do with nerve agents. There was like all these different trials and tests that took place that actually physically affected these guys to the point of where they got the crazies. So they were in this position where then George
Yeah.
looked at this and he's gone, do you know what?
Well, yeah, because the firefighter David and his fucking weird friend Clank, they're both Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
What got me very confused, and this might just be an overlook on me, but I didn't understand. I did in the remake, but I didn't understand in this one, and the ending as well. How I said I didn't understand the ending, um, even though they both ended exactly the same, I I didn't get the same if I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Um, but the how it all kicked off because the way that I remember it is it literally they knew this was going to happen and they weren't prepared for it. But that's not what happened at all. It was the same as what happened in the remake with the plane. But that's not how it comes across when you're in that doctor's office and you've got the military guy and the doctor is kind of saying, "Well, you knew this was going to happen." So how it was weird.
I think they mentioned vaguely there was a conversation that took part when he's saying, "Oh, you knew this was going to happen. You told us to be prepared for something." And I don't think they said what it was. Obviously, they didn't. But like, you didn't tell us that Trixie, which is what this is called.
Yeah, the code name for the bio weapon is Trixie,
which I liked because I thought it's very close to trioxin for Dawn of the for Return of the Dead. So like, it's kind of like I don't know if Dawn of the Dead were Return of the Dead. Jesus Christ, there's too many of the Deads. Return of the Living Dead was looking at Trixie and thinking, oh, it's a homage to George because it's an Of the Dead, and we can, we can play on that. And it's possible. I've got a book here, and it's the 245 Trioxin story over here, which I'm still yet to read, and it's all about the making of Return of the Living Dead. And it's one of those ones I bought at HorrorCon, and I was just like, I'm having that because it had Tarman on the front. Oh yeah,
of course you did.
I'm easily swayed, but I do love a book, so it's good. But it's one of those things I haven't got around to reading yet. But there's a lot in this movie that is confusion, and that's all I can say. And if you understand it all, kudos to you, because I ain't interested. Please don't try and explain it to me. It's one of those things where it has its place in its time, and its time was the early 70s, and I'm an 80s baby, and I wasn't there during this political and war-ridden time.
And it is very politically driven.
Yeah, I can't get behind something that I can't physically, I've got no reference to. Like, our families have fought in wars, so if they talk about the World War One or World War Two, you've got ancestors or family members that were in it at some point. Vietnam probably affected those people, this movie, that were part of Vietnam, because it was literally hot off the tails or just on the last knock-ins of it. I imagine it had a lot of effect on those kind of people because they knew
most definitely.
it. Yeah,
most definitely. But the one thing I can take away from this that I enjoyed, because there was some aspects I enjoyed, because I remember texting you before when I was watching it, and I was like, I'm really enjoying this. But what I'm enjoying is the cinematography, because it's so George.
Oh, it's
so George. It so reminds me of Dawn of the Dead in so many ways. And it doesn't help that you've got fucking Richard France, Orson Welles looking motherfucker in it too. So I said he was an Orson Welles impersonator. He wasn't. He was first acknowledged by Orson Welles for playing Orson Welles or something like that. But he's definitely got like this Orson Welles feel to him. But how he delivers dialogue is, for me, I love it. Like, I love how dramatic he is. And when he asks that woman who he's just met, and he's like, "Will you marry me?"
It was the bit where the mayor come in it's not the beginning, but the military are there, and the mayor's like, I'm not joking, this guy needed this part. It was like his life depended on this part.
I think that was everyone
shouting like no one's business. Like, every word was a Shakespearean moment.
Yes.
He had to have, and it was like, oh, the acting is it's just another level. I love George, and we wouldn't have so many things if it wasn't for George. So this isn't a slight on George. This is just my personal feelings on this movie, and I struggle with this, and I forgot how much I struggled with it until I sat down and tried to watch it again. It's the weird wrestle fighting they do as well. Like, no one fights, they all just wrestle. And it's
there's no punches thrown. It's so weird.
It is so peculiar.
Do you know it's based on a book?
Lee Hessel wrote it, the book, I think.
Paul McLaren.
Right.
McClaw. I think it's a short story, and he was a friend of George's.
Right.
And he was more than happy for George to take the premise and turn it into what he has done today.
Lee helped him turn it into a screenplay. That's my bad. Yeah, Lee helped George turn it into a screenplay for a movie.
You are absolutely right. He most certainly did.
Yeah.
I was going to say something and I've totally forgotten. I really don't have a lot of information.
There's not a lot
on
out
this
there to do
film.
with this one. I mean, when I was looking into it, it's it's just very short. Like, you can go to IMDb and it's probably only got 10 entries in the trivia, but you try Googling anything else and all they bring back is the same 10 cycled things. So I went on to a couple of websites of people doing reviews on it and things like that, and then started looking into it that way. It's been described as a hyperactive mess by somebody.
I can get that. I watched a video today of a guy who was meant to be doing a retrospect on the 1973 one and ended up talking more about the 2010 one than he did the 1973 one.
They say that basically this guy said that George doesn't offer much in the way of laughs in this one, unless you're nervously giggling at the absurd level of misery that one-ups itself scene after scene. And I think they're right. Every scene, something happens that was worse than the time before, time before, time before. The issue I do have in this one is I know he was on a low budget, because if I tell you the budget was in 1973, the budget was 275,000, which today's money is 1.9 million. Still a lot of money, but indie film at its heart. It took at the box office 147,000, so it only took $1 million, so it made a loss of 0.9 million at the box office, because it just was either too soon, too current, too much for people.
Could have been too on the nose for people. Like, we don't know what kind of effect this has on them if they're looking at the underlining of what George is trying to say.
Yeah. The one thing that George will always do that I love about him, he has to have a shock factor. There has to be something in that movie, and he did it with his other films, but this one, people weren't expecting it. You have all the hazmat suits come in. You've got all the army guys, and they're having the conversations with the hazmat suits on, and they're talking to all these different like ranked people. And when the colonel takes his mask off, you're met with George at his finest fuck you moment to everything. The colonel is black. Now, in 1973, that was not a thing.
No.
Very rare circumstances, but it was not a thing.
No.
And that's what he did with Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. He made sure he had key people.
I think because of the effect of Night of the Living Dead, because if you remember when we did our George episode, we learned that he didn't mean to do that in Night. He was just a really good actor who happened to be black.
Yeah.
But the effect that had on people obviously then takes a toll into the next one and the next one. And George is out now making a point.
Yeah. And picking really points of power for them to be in, because it's not something that was necessarily given or seen, or I don't know the correct words, but it wasn't
I know what you mean though, but it's
so he had to do that. He had that moment where the colonel took his mask off, and I can imagine a couple of the things I read were people, when they saw it at the cinema, there was like a collective gasp when the colonel took his mask off, because it was shock and awe. You know, firstly, it might not have been a bad shock and awe. It might have been just genuinely like, wow,
didn't expect that.
Or it could have been, how dare he? You don't know. Each their own, whatever their opinions were at the time. But I just love the fact that George thought to himself, right, I'm going to get him again. I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it purposefully this time.
Yeah, and I can imagine that's what he did, because like we said, in the original, he didn't set out to do that. It just ended up happening that way. Yeah. But maybe because it made such a point that he just went, this is going to be my point, because this shouldn't be a thing. And if you're going to make it a thing, I'm going to point out how ridiculous that thing actually is.
Yeah.
He was class though. He was probably more shouty than anyone.
Nobody talked to each other. They just shouted at each other this entire movie.
Like, they were having a conversation, and bloody Orson Welles was like, you know, being very sincere, and then all of a sudden, they just fucking voices would be raised, and they're all shouting over the top of each other, and it's like, I don't understand what's just happened.
It did take away a lot of it. And I will say, I don't think their Foley stage had a lot of sound effects when they did the dubbing at the end, when they took it to the editing suite, because they only had one gunshot noise.
Yeah, I noticed
That was
that.
it. One gunshot noise, and it was recycled. And every gunshot noise is, I don't think they even pitch shift it in any way. I think it is exactly the same noise. And judging by the kill count for this movie, that's a lot of bullets that was fired this entire movie.
Yeah.
So
the blood.
oh, yeah.
It's so 70s. It's
Red
paint.
paint.
It's fucking
Yeah.
paint.
Red
That's
paint.
what it is. And it's so, but I don't actually mind that because you're in the aesthetic of the time. Like you can tell this is the 70s. You can tell where you are. So I don't mind it, but it is very when you first see it, you're like, oh, that's very red.
That's thick. Because I did check. I was like, because obviously we all know, go back and watch our Tom Savini episodes, 1 and 2, two-parter. We know that Tom worked very, very closely with George. Tom and George had an affinity.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, this doesn't look
Did
like
he?
Tom's stuff.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
Because obviously my brain goes straight to the fact that they were working together on this.
Mhm.
Now, I went back and I checked, and I was right. He wasn't. This isn't Tom's level of. Tom
No.
would have if they would have been covered in squibs, the blood would have been. It would have been another level.
It would have been what the second one looked like.
Yes, this one was obviously you could see it was done on a shoestring. I mean,
Oh yeah.
20,000, 1.9 million by today's standard isn't a shoestring, but it's an indie budget.
This is A-level drama. Like, we're not quite at GCSE.
Your BTEC.
But we're at A-level bit. Yeah, BTEC. We're not, yeah. We'll go down a step. We'll do BTEC drama, what I did at college.
Same, yeah.
And then moved on to A-level drama. But yeah. We're
yeah, like I say, I couldn't care less what happened to the core 5 characters, because there was core 5. You had Judy, Clank,
David.
Lynn, David, and then
Daddy.
Is it Alfie, the weird guy that was like following Lynn around?
Oh yeah, and then there was the dad as well.
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, her dad. What was her problem, by the way? What was
Lynn?
Yeah, was she ill?
I don't know. See, this was the thing that I had at the beginning. I thought maybe she was. I don't know the correct terminology to use for this, but maybe she had needs that are greater than mine. I wasn't entirely sure. If she was playing kind of spacey out there, like she seemed like she was high, but she wasn't, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, I do actually know what you mean. I just couldn't quite put my finger on what direction she was taking this character, because at first she's a naive girl who's obviously, codependent on her father. And then it just took a weird turn. And it was when she's having a conversation with Crank, and she's like, I like you. I really like you. And she goes in for a big one. And I'm like, well, where the fuck did that come from?
It could say a lot for the fact that her dad might have been holding her, like her dad being around might have been holding her back, and then all of a sudden
it could have, and she's
just
taken complete advantage of a situation where he's not there. Yes, he could be coddling her quite a lot, because he does when he kind of like gets a hold of her, and he's like, she doesn't know what she's doing, and I'm like, well, she does. She knows exactly what she's doing. Like, the relationship was weird, and I don't know where they were going with it. The couple, David and Judy, he was putting everything into his acting. Like, he really, I felt he was the only one who was cohesive to say, I am an actor in this movie.
I think I will say, is it Clank? He had his moments, whatever his name is. Yeah, Clank. He had his moments.
He did, and yes, you are absolutely right. It's the Vietnam vet in him. It came out quite a few times. But David was it was almost like he was trying to be a bit comedy relief. Judy was the biggest fucking wet blanket I've ever met in my life. I swear to God, if I'd gone to work and the first thing I saw was a military guy asking me for syringes, I'd be walking out the fucking door.
Nope, I'm gone. Thank you.
Now, see you later. Ta-ta. But it's the whole, and I hate this about films. Why? Why doesn't fucking matter. There's a guy in a hazmat suit asking for syringes. Just walk away.
Well, we need exposition, though. We need to be told why, because we don't know why either. And even then, he wouldn't answer our bloody questions anyway. So the point
and he's
is
like,
that
lady, give me syringes. I need syringes. Well, fucking find them yourself.
But Lynn. And now I'm going to talk about that scene. Is it? I'm sure his name was Alfie.
Yeah, it was
the other guy,
Artie,
something like that, along those lines. Now I'm not sure if that was attempted grape or that was consensual. I do not know.
It just says attempting to have sex with Kathy.
It was very strange. She looked like she was enjoying it too much, but he looked like he was trying to molest her. And I don't know. I came away from that bit and I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel here. I don't know what I'm watching.
Well, Clank ends up beating him. So
Yeah,
I'm guessing the intention in his head and what he's seeing and what we're seeing, the feelings are exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know at this point, or we're starting to suspect that he's sort of getting a little bit. There's moments where you're seeing the crazy come out, but then it gets put back really quickly. You know, with
yeah, this is where the second one beats it so well, but we'll get into that one in a bit.
You see glimpses of crazy, so you're like, oh, I don't. You know, you're supposed to see it in all of them because they will lose their temper every now and again, and you're like, oh, they've all got it. You know, everybody's got it.
Who's sick, who's not.
Yeah, and then you have this scene, and then I don't think long after that they discover him. Clank discovers him in above the stairs because he's hung himself. And he looked. I don't know what the makeup situation or the choices were for that. That was a peculiar choice. He looked like he'd been covered in soot.
Why? Yeah.
It was a very strange. I don't know whether I was watching the copy. Amazon Prime has got both of them. And
I was watching it on YouTube.
And I was like, you know, you're like, I know this is grainy. It's guerrilla style film, kind of. It's an
almost.
It's a
You're right.
Oh my God, my memory.
Exploitative.
There we go. It was.
I don't even know if I said it right there.
Exploitation cinema. Yeah, it was one. It was intended to be that kind of like along the lines of what Frankenhooker was. Frankenhooker was exploitation cinema. This didn't quite get there for me because it wasn't on the level that normal exploitation cinema is at. This was on a different. This is like you say. I think this was a political.
Oh, this is a complete political message.
And I'm still not entirely sure what the message was. But
no, me neither.
There's a couple of bits in it as well, like, and spoiler alert, there's an old lady with a knitting needle, and that to me I wet my pants when that happened.
What the fuck?
She's in a rocking chair upstairs. Clearly, you know, you take one look at an old lady.
Grandma looks
and you're like, yeah, she's got it. She's got it. It's she's definitely got it. So any common sense, you'd be like, I ain't going near her. So this guy in the hazmat suit approaches the old granny. Oh, come on, love, time to go. You're all right. And she stabs him to death with a knitting needle. Sits back down, and it's the way she looks at the other guy who comes up and sticks his head round the door, and she's going, hello. You know, it's just like.
She was quite funny, and all I kept thinking of is, I got my ears pierced with a knitting needle.
I thought she looked like Super Gran. So it's just
a
like,
little bit. She was quite tall, actually.
mm,
She reminded like I always used to think it was strange because my grandmother was 6 foot, and my other grandmother, who was actually she's I used to have a gran called Big Gran and Little Gran. And I always used to find my little gran seemed normal, like a normal size gran. She was 4 foot 11, 4 foot 10. She was tiny. And then my grandmother's like 6 foot, and it's like, you're weird. I don't know. I don't picture grandmothers being that tall.
yeah, it was probably the only bit of comedy that I found in this entire film for me personally, except
Oh.
for there was a couple of little bits that if you watch out for enough, you catch them and you're just like, oh,
What are you doing?
yeah, there's a bit with the special effects where they have one of the hazmat guys' heads in a tree, like he's supposed to be looking around this tree branch, but it's precariously rested in a V in a tree like this. So you can clearly tell there's no body attached to it, right? And it's a special effects stunt for when they shoot it, it explodes. The head explodes into spam, right? And I'm like, that made me giggle, but that was an unintentional thing.
What?
I don't think that was supposed to be funny.
What really made me laugh was what's his death? Fucking Orson Welles. When he...
Falling down the stairs. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you're not gonna die by the padding on that man. You're not gonna die by falling down the stairs.
But it's okay because the Cures were. Oh no, they were fucked as well.
They
So
went down the stairs with him, but it was the oh oh no. This
Brilliant.
movie is so dramatic,
Yes,
but it's like almost soap style
yeah,
dramatic, like.
telenovela,
Oh my
overacted
God, a
drama.
scandalo. Like,
It's scandalous.
absolutely. It was so, like I said to Dan when I first started watching it, I was like, I like this. I like the look of it. I like the aesthetic of it. I feel like I'm in a George movie. But when you really break it down, there's not a great deal to like about it because there is there is something going on, but there is nothing going on.
Exactly. We're just going to kill everybody. So it's
Uh-huh.
supposed to come in and literally cleanse this town to try and not let it escape. But guess what? The twist is it escaped. So
Well,
it's the poor
who the
colonel
fuck
gets
saw
the
that
phone.
coming?
The poor colonel gets that phone call to say, "Well done, you've eradicated it from this. Now it's time to go to the next one where they're showing signs." And you could just see that, and at that point was probably the closest I've had to empathy in the entire movie, where he just sits there and he's just like,
Louisville. That's where he's going. He's going
mm,
to Louisville. I didn't get the ending. I must have switched off, blinked or something because all I saw was the title credits coming up and him on a helicopter going up, and I'm like,
right. From
and
what I could gather, what
did
happened
they nuke
was
the place?
I don't recall them that I know they talked about it in the first one, but I don't know if they did it. They didn't show it happening.
Hmm.
Um, there was, from what I can gather, what happened was everybody died. Clank died. Lucy's death was hilarious, may I add, because she was gouged in a bunch of hazmat suits, and then they all shot her in like a firing squad moment where there was
Oh,
all like in an oval, and they shot
Kathy,
yeah,
Lynn,
Kathy. And they shot her and she just went,
she,
oh, and then fell over.
she
And I'm not
absolutely,
joking. That's her exact line. I've even written it down. Oh,
yeah, says oh, and then falls down. Yeah, she was not happy with the way that she died. And she
it
said it
was.
was she said it was like she had this big death scene that just ended up her going, oh,
Yeah.
and then falling down.
And
And
I'm like,
she just said it was really dumb.
well, she went from this massive, like, because you could tell at that point she was starting to turn because she was screaming and shouting at all the hazmat suit people. So they thought, I'm presuming she was turning. She might not have. She might have just been
A woman,
genuinely
we're
one
all
of those
crazy.
people. Yeah. And she might have been at the end of her rope at that point. And it was just when they shot her and she was cognizant enough to go, oh,
Oh,
and fall over. I was like, oh, for Christ's sake, it felt a little lazy,
yeah.
like,
Unlike the second one.
but did you know how many kills were in the first one?
No, go on.
What ballpark do you think we're in?
Ooh, okay. Well, it's not going to be. The first number that came to my head was 48.
73.
Oh, that's quite a jump.
Yeah, that's on scene on screen only as well. That's all the
Right.
shots that you see of all the villagers, everybody that gets killed in this, and that's including Judy and her unborn baby as well, because she's the last to die at the end before David gets confused as a soldier and they put him in a hot hazmat suit and get him on the helicopter. So that's how it ends. But technically, he is then spreading the virus.
Yeah.
But then wouldn't they all be spreading the virus, because some of those hazmat suits were very open around the neck when they were running around. So I'm just
They
like,
looked like really shitty Star Wars like uniforms. Do you know? Remember in the 80s with the paper bloody? Oh yeah,
they look like they were
you.
going to paint a wall. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they did. They were absolutely. There was no threat about it. Like I know I said earlier, if someone was in a hazmat suit, but really to look at them, there's no threat behind them. Unlike the second one.
Yes.
I love the second one.
Yeah.
It was.
I used to watch it a lot, the second one.
I've never watched it. I own it. I own that and I own this. And I've never watched either of them until I watched the remake today, and I get it. Like this doesn't, oh, it just doesn't feel like a remake. It doesn't feel like a remake like we did last year. Do you know when there was, I don't know, there was something so different about this one.
Yeah. I mean, they gave George executive producer rights on this movie.
Yeah, they credited him. Whether or not he did now with it, I don't know.
No, I mean the whole thing about this one, it felt placed better. It felt like there was more of a
It was established.
cohesive storyline.
Yeah.
I had more empathy towards the characters, because I felt like the characters, even though you don't see them, you don't get a lot of exposition with the characters themselves, they're quite likable from the start. You don't have that.
Yeah, I feel like in that first scene, the baseball scene,
Yeah.
there is a lot established just in that scene alone.
Yeah.
The sense of community, the the sheriff is king kind of thing. Like everyone looks up to him, and the fact that he had to make this awful decision was, it was a travesty. There was a lot in his deputy as well, who, oh my God, did I love their relationship. And I have a theory about him. But yeah, there was a lot established in that moment, and it was very small, but you knew who he was.
Yeah.
You knew who that sheriff was, and you knew who his deputy was, and you knew they were a tight community.
Yeah.
You never got that.
No.
At all in the first one.
They kept David and Judy as the two protagonist named characters as well, which I kind of liked, because it kept you
connected.
Yeah, you had a toe dipped in it.
Yeah.
And she was the town doctor.
Yes.
And he was the sheriff. So
he was the sheriff. Who was this deputy? I shouldn't really do that. Russell. Oh my gosh, did I absolutely adore them two together. The dynamic between the two of them was just, and again, I do have a theory, but I'll get into it in a bit later. There is a bit where, and you know how I said I had to go back and look at some things, and I forgot to do it on one of them, so I'll have to remind myself when we get to that point to ask the question. But did you know Lynn Larry is in this one?
He is, yeah.
For 2 seconds. She goes across the screen on a bicycle just making nonsense or saying nonsense.
When the town is like, he's realised there's he looks at his mobile phone, there's no signal. He looks at the Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, he looks at the internet, it's gone down. He picks up the landlines, they're not working, and something in him panics and goes, we're in a lot of trouble. And he goes outside to try and get some more signal in his phone. And then the town street is dead. If you could have had a tumbleweed go across, you would have.
Oh, yeah.
You spot this black SUV in the back, and then they do like a POV of them taking like surveillance photos of him.
Well, that's what you get all the way through, isn't it? That he's...
Yeah. And then you get this like woman come out in pigtails singing on a bike, and you're like, what the... at that.
It's
What is
fucking
going
Lynn
on?
Lowry.
It's Lynn.
It's Lynn going across it. But so at the beginning of the movie, like I said, it's set up with the baseball. The town's all watching it, and this guy out of nowhere comes out with a shotgun. The sheriff knows who he is, assumes that he's drunk, and the gun is raised, and he shoots him
in front of the entire.
Yeah, the sheriff shoots
everyone.
the Roy is what
Right.
he's called. No, Rory, sorry, and he gets killed. Now, while that happened, Judy gets called to a case. Isn't it Amy Adams, by the way?
No, it's Rhoda Mitchell. No, oh, that woman.
Yeah.
I honestly, yeah, I thought the same as you because it gave me a second, but no, it's not Amy Adams. It's a woman that's incredibly like her.
Really looked like her.
Mm.
But yes, this Amy Adams looking person brings her husband and their son in to see the doctor, and the doctor is the sheriff, who is David's wife, and he's having it's almost dementia symptoms. It's what I got, and that's what I thought she was going to go with, because she says something to him, and he says, "Oh, she worries. I'm fine. Nothing's wrong with us."
But he's
and
just
then
sitting and staring, isn't he? There's like nothing.
Nothing's there, and then she says something completely unrelated, and he goes back to say the same thing again. She worries about us. I'm totally fine. Nothing's wrong. It's the same thing he's just said, and she just kind of like brushes it off, because why would you think anything other than he's just having a moment? This is not him. Maybe, we just monitor the situation, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a tiny town in the middle of nowhere. They're not,
Yeah. He's not going anywhere. She is local. She said you can contact me day or night. And also, while that's going on, they're also then drawn to the swamp, where they discover a corpse of a pilot.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on in this, dear mind.
Yeah, it's very quick, like one after another after another. That some people have gone out to do some illegal hunting of animals, ducks, whatever it is they were hunting, and they see this parachute in the tree, and then they obviously see the corpse. So they go back to the sheriff, or they call the sheriff, and the sheriff comes out, and he's like, he tells them off for being out when they shouldn't, and then he says, well, if this is here, and he's evacuated, from the
where's the
plane?
Yeah.
So they then go out looking for this plane. Now, how he saw it from that angle when it was that murky.
It's when he goes, "We're on top of it." I went, "Now, how do you know that?"
All right.
How clever are you, David?
Yeah. And then they obviously give you the aerial view, and you can see the plane in the water.
Yeah.
And it's a big freaking plane. But as he said, we never heard a crash. We never saw an explosion. There was no signs that this actually happened anywhere. He said, so this is really strange. And then something in his brain clicks, and they go to the town planning's office to find out which way the water flows. Because in his head, he's like, okay, well, if the water, if there's a oil
contamination, if there's contamination in the water, it's part of our supply. Where is it going to hit first? Lo and behold, it's the guy who we shot his house, and he goes to the mayor, who, by the way, couldn't do a better job of the mayor from Jaws if he fucking tried.
I will not shut the beach. It's Labor Day. I will not shut the beach.
It's July the 4th, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Special occasions.
Yeah, but it was so of it's just he's in the pool, and he's in his mansion, and he's like, I'm not doing this, I'm not turning this off, and I'm like, oh my God, you are awful.
But I liked the fact that everything around them was water that was happening. There was sprinklers going on. He was in the pool. You had the tractors that were spraying the land, and I was just sitting there going, they're telling you what's happening here.
They're showing you. It's like
they're poisoning the food, they're poisoning the grass, the ground. The guys just swam in this, so, and he's then going to refuse to let anybody. And I understand this is the difference between him and the Jaws guy. I understand where he was coming from, because it's a farming community. You cut off the water, you cut off livelihoods, and I get that.
Oh, her, because the guy from Jaws was literally just cutting off tourism. Like, fuck off. Like,
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of it, who cares? But this was livelihoods. This was crops. This was people's living. This was people surviving. So I do get where he's coming. Even if he was being an arrogant
Yeah.
fucker about it, I do get where he's coming from. Timothy Oliphant, on the other hand, didn't see it that way.
No, no. So he
Not
thought
that
he'd take it into his own hands anyway, didn't he?
Well, and I didn't see the repercussions of that. Were there any repercussions? No, I didn't think so. I didn't think I'd missed that. But so we've got the dead guy, we've got the guy acting weird, we've got the dead pilot, and we've got the fact that he thinks that the water has been contaminated. What we get on the nighttime
Is
is
the
the
visit to
guy.
the morgue.
Well, it was the guy who was acting weird.
Yeah.
We have that first.
Oh, yeah, of course we do. Yeah.
Yeah, we have that first. So the guy who was acting weird,
With not Amy Adams.
with the not Amy Adams person, does what happens in the first scene of the original. He goes fucking crazy. But in the original, there's a boy and a girl and a mum. Mum and the daughter die, but the boy survives.
Yeah.
In this one, nobody survives. He doesn't attack them. He doesn't physically hurt them. He just sets the house on fire and locks them in.
Yeah, in the cupboard. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Judy and David are on the scene because obviously Judy's called being a doctor, David being the sheriff. They're both called out, and they're kind of starting to, oh shit, like it's almost like they have this moment where they look at each other and go, "What did we like? What the fuck is going on?" And what did I do not looking into this further? But what could she have done? What the fuck was she? If it was me, if he was given some signs of dementia, that's all I could like, or Alzheimer's or something, memory, not gonna lose their fucking mind and burn a fucking house down with
No.
their family inside. Like, who would think that?
It's no. It's you wouldn't go there. You would
It's incomprehensible. You wouldn't put that into your mind, but my God, that scene like that really got me when they're standing outside and the realization that them two are inside, and it's her more than anything. I fucking loved her through this, mind. There was one moment I wanted to punch her face in, but for the rest of it, I thought she made such a great sidekick to David.
Well, Elizabeth Banks was originally offered the part.
She was.
But
And I could see it.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, Elizabeth Banks was too worried that it was too similar to the part she played in James Gunn's Slither.
Yeah.
Which I can also see, but I don't know. I think Ryder Mitchell does a really good job of Judy in this, and I think she was probably the right choice.
She's got such a great balance of emotion and being realistic. So it was, but there is a moment where she just kind of loses it, and you would expect that to happen. There is so much fucking chaos going on, but somehow she manages to always kind of pull it back. I really enjoy. There's not one performance in this I did not enjoy. Timothy Oliphant being the absolute fucking boy in this. Like, I was saying to Dan today, my turning point was, what was it called, the Santa Clarita Diet?
Yeah.
I kind of went, whew. Who's this? It's Mickey from Scream 2.
Mickey from Scream 2, it was my turning point. That should say a lot about me.
Terrible. He's not terrible, but he's just a horrible character.
Oh, he is, but there was something about, like, you could tell he wasn't right all the way through, but no one was picking up on it because he just had this like 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
And no one was I picked up on the 1,000-yard stare in Scream 2, like at the beginning, the way like he would, it's like he was watching their behaviors, and when they started to get a bit hostile, he'd like feed off of it. But yeah, it's Timothy went to school with Jeremy Renner. He was in the same class as Jeremy Renner.
Really?
And then he graduated USC with, are you ready for this? Will Ferrell and Macy Gray were in his class when they graduated.
Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's not some royalty there. And also, the MCU could have been incredibly different because Timothy was offered Iron Man. He was going to be Tony Stark.
There was a few people who was going to be Tony Stark. I knew Timothy Oliphant was one of them.
I can see a lot of people get GeorgeARomero. I'm not saying his surname right, but
oh yeah, Transformers.
Transformers. They get him and Timothy confused all the time.
I can understand where they're coming from with that. I'm loving seeing him in he's in the Star Wars universe now.
Cobb Vanth
Yeah,
in The Mandalorian.
yeah. I'm gonna say yeah
Cobb
to his
Vanth.
name. I can't remember what it was, but I just remember him being in it. I always get very happy when I see Timothy Oliphant's name come up. And when I didn't even know until you said last week he was in it. I hadn't a clue. I had no clue, but oh my God, he is so fucking good in this film.
Did you know he was a stand-up comedian as well before he went into acting?
I can kind of get that, and especially like the Santa Clarita Diet, his physical comedy is brilliant. Like I didn't, and this is probably the turning point because I only know him as Mickey, and then I see that this guy's got some range, like he can really act.
Yeah, he's in this. I think he's good at his job. People like him. He's kind of no nonsense, but at the same time, he will be empathetic to you if he feels it's right for you to be so. But
he's very good at giving a pep talk.
oh yeah, he's one of those motivational speakers, isn't he?
Very good at giving a pep talk, especially who are you? Well, I'm the deputy, and who am I? Well, you're the sheriff, and who answers to the sheriff? The deputy. And it's like he was so good. Their two relationship was. I'm going to get my theory out the way with when it comes to him. I don't think he was ill at all.
Oh no, he wasn't.
I don't think he was ill at all. I think that was stress. I think that was exhaustion. I think it was because there's no fucking way he would have taken that shot from the window if he was ill. He would have sabotaged that.
Not even that, and not just that, should I say? The scene where he sacrifices himself later on, he empties the clip out of the gun.
Yeah, he wouldn't have. He would have just went for it.
Yeah, he would have gone out all guns blazing. It would have been showdown. But it
would have completely went for it. And I think he got into his own head that he was poorly, he was sick. So he was acting out because he was scared. He was absolutely terrified of what was going to become of him. He could have quite easily shot him. He could have shot him 50 million times over.
And he could have shot the annoying girl Becca.
Oh,
Becca started coughing her head off in the car, and I was like, "Stop that now!"
Oh my God, it's Danielle Panabaker.
Yeah.
I only know her from CW's Flash. Yeah, she was in the Flash. That cough so reminded me. There's a lot of this that reminded me of the pandemic. And the cough especially. I will never forget the time during lockdown. Remember when you could only go shopping one at a time? Like there was only one person per household could go shopping, and it was like they'd let one person in, leave a gap, the next person. Even though you'd end up meeting up with people, you keep your distance. I was in Aldi, and this woman she could hear her like she was making some really funny noises, and she had a hand over her mouth, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And she just like obviously mask on and everything, and she went, "I need to cough," and I was like, "Then cough." She was like, "I can't." She went, "I can't do it in public." I was like, "I just cough for God's sake." I says, "I'm the only person standing here. Cough." I ended up going grabbing a bottle of water off the shelf. I pulled it out of one of the thingies and just grabbed it and give it to her. So because she was in tears. She was literally all because she wanted to cough. I was like, and it so reminded me of that moment because you can see she's like stopping herself to the point where she can't. Like she knows what the kind of reaction that's going to have. But going back to where we were, the morgue scene.
Yeah.
Love this scene.
It was really well written.
It was really brilliantly written, but I love seeing the botched up job they did on the fucking stitching. I loved it.
That was
How
a
dare
surprise.
you
It was a
exaggerate
surprise,
it?
though, wasn't it? It was a real
Yeah.
surprise when he pulled the sheet back because that I wasn't expecting.
No, me neither. I wasn't. I was expecting someone to be alive, but I
Hmm.
wasn't expecting someone to be alive with stitching. That was such a Frankenstein. But I get the meaning of it. You could
Mm.
because when you death talk with Sammy again. When you stitch your mouth up, you actually do it on the inside, so you don't see it. It's all done on the inside, so you don't technically see the stitching marks.
Hmm.
You don't actually stitch the eyes up either.
No.
So the eyes, you get a cap
Yeah, with the
that
spike.
goes, yeah, that goes
Yeah.
underneath your eyelid, and that's what creates the illusion of your eyeballs. Because grim fact, they're not there no more. Sorry, I'm so sorry. We're a horror podcast. What can I say?
But yeah, then you got the mortician hits him with the golf club. Then there's a brain drill, which, by the way, may I add, will not cut through flesh.
Oh no, not at all. But that maneuver he did was just. I loved it. I loved for all that I kind of when I took one look at that guy, I was like, oh.
Mm.
But I was so like into that scene.
Yeah, it was really good.
Hmm.
And then obviously you have the moment where the saw is heading precariously close to Timothy's baby
Bits.
maker. And it's just like, oh my God, that's like, no, 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 no. Oh, okay, good.
It's all right. She's already pregnant. That was one thing we discover later
Yeah.
on is that David's wife is pregnant, which is exactly the same as the narrative in the original as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the morgue scene. I really love that morgue scene.
Because after this bit, isn't this where they all get corralled? They meet up, he's got back with his wife, and they get corralled and like into this great big like quarantine thing where they're being separated and having their temperature taken.
Yeah, that's right. Temperature. It just it's so
10 years
weird.
fucking early, mind, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, this is where they go into they're all being, and this is where this is how brilliant they did this because again, it's community. There was so many people there, and that's not something you got to saw in the original. Like to
No.
know how big this town actually was,
Mm.
and this is where they end up getting separated when they take the temperature of David. I assume he's fine.
Yeah.
She isn't. And the
No.
likelihood is she isn't because if she is pregnant, her thermal temperature is going to be very different to
Hmm.
her to anyone else's, really.
So this is where they start the weirdness starts. So they separate all of the healthy from what they deem as possibly the sick. And then they take some of those sick and they go and strap them to gurneys for some reason.
Yes, now we find this out much later on that you literally because they wanted to know the incubation time and they're told that it's 48 hours. You either have it or you don't. You're either dead or you're alive. And I think that's the where they are doing the incubation of them. So it's a case of they strap them down. If they are gonna go crazy, they can't really get very far,
Right.
and then they'll come in and get killed. Um, fuck this scene really. Oh no, no. There's a lot of women strapped down to a table,
Hmm.
and the whole room is infiltrated by one person with a rake,
Garden fork.
garden fork. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Four prong garden fork.
absolute. Oh my God, thinking he's Zeus or something coming busting through the door. My goodness. Oh
Yeah,
man,
and just literally takes out one person by person
the fucking
with his
awake.
trident. And yeah, and you get to Becca, don't you? Becca strapped down to the table.
Yes.
And so Judy starts screaming to get his attention. And at that point you're like, oh, you shit the bed there. That's not
Yeah.
gonna go down well now.
Mm-mm.
And yeah, then I think they shoot him in the head, don't they? Because then they come in and
David
rescue.
and Russell get because David has this
They've all broken
brilliant,
out.
but David has this brilliant conversation with this person from the town, and he's like, "Listen, you're gonna have it is what it is. Cut and run, save yourself." And I loved what he said to him was, I'm not gonna question you on why you think it's okay to leave your wife, so you don't question me on why I am going to go and get my wife.
Mm.
And I loved what he said to him there. But yeah, it's David and Russell who come in and save Becca and Judy. Only Becca and Judy, by the way. That room is full of women, might I say. But hey,
Yeah.
story needs to move.
Fuck you guys.
Yeah, we're out of here. But they do get away quite seamlessly. Like there's none of it seems almost too easy. So my anxiety is like, well, surely they haven't just gotten out of this facility a-okay.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
kind
they
of
go
did.
back to their house, don't they?
They do. They
And
do.
that's when they get ambushed.
Yeah, so Becca, not Becca. No, right, okay, that's it. Her boyfriend, Becca's boyfriend,
Scott.
that's the part I missed.
Yeah.
What happened to Scotty?
Scotty and his mum get killed. Basically, they tried to make it to Scotty, and Scotty tries to shoot them. But then something happens, and Scotty and his mum get killed and burnt, and that's all I remember.
Right.
With that bit.
I must have missed it and only thought about it later on, and I was like, oh shit. It was when they're in the car. And I was like, oh shit, where the fuck's Scotty at?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can't be asked to go all the way back now. I'll just find out later. But yeah, this is where they're at the house, and Judy goes to the nursery, and my God, this moment just I loved it. This is probably one of my favorite kills, I'm going to be honest with you, that I've seen in a long time. I thought it was very inventive.
It's Rory's wife and kid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Rory's wife and kid, completely and utterly affected. The makeup job on these is brilliant. The black going up, like the veins and everything, kind of showing the infectedness of them, but also that they're still kind of there as well, because they actually tie Judy to a chair and lure David up with the sound of the mobile, the baby mobile, and obviously he's like, we have to leave this place. You can't, like, he's thinking Judy's getting a bit too attached to when they have to go, and that's when he gets ambushed by the kid, and there is a tussle with a gun, to where the gun falls on the floor. They both go to reach it, and then someone out of nowhere just fucking stabs Timothy Oliphant in the hand and pins him to the floor. I really thought he was gonna like literally rip it out the side or something. He was so determined to get that gun. I was like, that hand is getting ripped somewhere. But he didn't. He did, though, manage to pull it up and use it as a weapon, as it's in his fucking hand. My favorite kill.
Yeah,
Loved it.
it's there's some interesting ones in this. I mean, there's the bit where they're going through the car wash, which I think is pretty much next, isn't it? Where they're going through the car wash, they get in the car, they
Yeah.
drive and drive and drive, and for some reason they go through this car wash, and I can't remember why. I think a helicopter flew over.
A
And
helicopter, yeah, and they kind of go into it, but then the car wash starts to work.
it traps them in, doesn't it? And it pulls them in so they can't get out.
Yeah.
And
And
then
then they can't see either.
yeah, and then there's just this really weird scene where these really far gone crazies are there.
Mm-hmm.
And these ones are, I don't know if you noticed, their entire head is gone into that weird.
Yeah, it's starting to.
The one thing about Breck Eisner was, though, when he was trying to explain zombies, because these aren't technically zombies,
No.
these are infected.
Yeah.
But he was like, he kept going to the special effects department and saying, okay, what diseases could that be? And they were like, well, it's not about the disease, it's like aesthetically pleasing to the camera. It's like, no, it has to be, every bit of makeup you do to these infected has to be based in some kind of real disease.
I like
He
that.
said, I want it believable. So what would happen? Is that botulism? Is this progeria? Is this HLH? What are these things?
Oh, I like that.
So every piece of makeup is based in some form of extreme necrosis of the skin or some kind of disease which causes this to happen. So yeah, it was a nightmare for the special effects people, because if it wasn't real, it couldn't be there. There was no reason for it.
And honestly, it made such a difference. because it kind of showed different levels of
Mm.
where they are. And I did appreciate that. But this is when they take the back window out and attach
A lasso.
Becca fire lasso and just know that that car is going to move at some point, and she gets yanked out the back and hangs.
Can I just say, pop up crazy though. That head come out of nowhere. It's like boom, pop up.
Yeah,
I was like, what?
yeah.
Okay.
It,
But
it
yeah,
came out. It came out of nowhere.
her neck must have broken instantly because this is where we say goodbye to Becca.
Yeah, but it's so quick. Like
Mm.
unless the neck snaps straight away, you are suffering for a bit.
Yeah,
So it must have snapped straight away because she was dead instantly.
yeah. And then the car proceeds to explode
As it would.
be because the helicopter bombed it, I think, is the
Yeah.
presumption that I made of that.
Now, this is where things get a bit hazy because they're on the road now and have that wonderful scene of three of them walking slow-mo, the
Devil
dusting
rejects
everything
her.
around. Wasn't it just? But I appreciated it. I loved it. And this is where is this where they take the car down with the colonel in it?
I think so. This is the bit where they're trying to figure out, like, Russell spots that one's his car, and he
Mm-hmm.
notices that they've been spiked, so all of his tires have been spiked because
Yeah.
whoever was in it was trying to leave in it. And he starts trying to get things out of the car, and then he realizes nothing's there. And then they're making the plan to cut across because they start seeing something. There's something that distracts them. Something's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
The spot. So my notes say while walking down the road, the group spots a black SUV speeding, which
mm,
Russell disables with a police spike strip.
yeah, which he got off the floor from that bit. Yeah.
Yeah, convenient.
Oh.
And that's where he's met with a government employee who then goes on to tell him actually what is going on.
Mm.
And this is where we find out that it's a biological weapon called Trixie. It's getting into the water. Like he was right. Like he was right on the money. It's getting into the water. It's getting into the air. It's everywhere. And he tells them that you've got basically 48 hours. 48 hours of being exposed to either have it or don't have it.
Hmm.
Now it is confirmed right there. It's 72 hours
Yeah.
since they have been apparent or could have been exposed, which is instantly where I was like, Russell, he's not sick.
Hmm.
He's really not sick, and that's the moment I was, and then it having that realization makes his death so much more heartbreaking.
Yeah, 100%, because he sacrifices himself. He even has the conversation with him, doesn't he? He's like,
Hmm.
you have got to get her out of here,
Yeah.
and I will be the bait. And he's
Hmm.
like looking at him, and he's like, he gives him his gun, and he can just see the, like, disappointment in his face as he's giving him the gun. Not disappointment, the just sheer realization of what is about to happen, and he's
Yeah.
like, I can't acknowledge you. You can tell he's like disassociating to a degree because the way he gives him the gun, and then he's like, you can see he's thinking to himself, I don't want to think about this too much. I've just got to let
Mm.
him do what he needs to do.
Yeah.
Because he also thinks he might be infected because of his behavior. But
Yeah. It's sad. It's so sad because they have him because he actually shoots the guy who's just given them all this information before they even get a chance to get any more out of him.
yeah,
And that's kind of so in David's head he's probably is thinking, oh shit, he is sick because who the fuck would do that? I told him not to. But it is just in Russell's head, it's taken too long. We found out what we need to know. Let's fucking move on.
yeah,
There's nothing further we're going to get out of him, and he's going to have to die anyway.
yeah.
He has to. But what's the other alternative? He gets his guys and he takes them back.
Hmm.
So, and thank Christ he didn't because of the fate of the fucking place. That shocked me.
I wasn't surprised because I still feel like that is something to this day that
Would happen?
would happen. I do feel like what is it they say? Art imitates life, imitates art, imitates life.
Yeah.
I feel like the ending, when we get there, will be something that I think the egotistical cheesy what's it may consider if he was put in such a situation. I do believe that it's men in power, in positions of
who know
power,
the codes, become
megalomaniacs, and I do believe it could genuinely happen.
Well, it did. This is not the first time we see this in movie history. We also saw it in The Return of the Living Dead. That's how they took out their threats too.
Yeah,
it must just be a thing.
That's why I feel like there's quite a lot of nods to George in this as well. There's graffiti of Romero in one of the prison cells. There's like some of the characters being named the same. Then there's like little bits like the ending that is very similar to this. Even though obviously George didn't do Return of the Living Dead, it's an of the dead. So they were trying to, they wanted to.
But the guy who did the Deads, he was with George. They kind of like the one point they were very much the same person. Yeah, they kind of meshed together. I can't remember what happens next. I can't remember. So
Russell sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
And then they make a run for it. And
that's right.
See them get down into they literally make it. They make it to the garage where they find the big Peterbilt lorry, and it's like a diner. It's like that. What is that? Is it Buc-ee's? That big service station in America that's really famous because it has restaurants, it has food, it's got like it's got like a shopping center inside it. It's insane. It's massive. But this has got like a garage and all sorts in it. And they have some water and they drink bottled water. They don't even think about it, which I thought was clever because they just picked it up and drank it. And I was like,
yeah. When she had the bottle of water in her hand, I wasn't thinking about it at first. It was the food on the counter. I was going, wouldn't fucking touch that. And then I was like, oh, she's got bottled water, clever girl. Well done.
And
well done.
They've had this heart to heart to basically say, what will be will be, but we're getting the hell out of here. And he was like, she kept saying, stop being so positive. I'm sick of you being so positive about this. We've got to face the reality that we might not.
And
then they basically have they have a bit of a huff kind of thing ish, and he walks off to see what he can find.
But it's the moment when he says, if you want to sit here and die, wait it out and sit here and die, I will sit here and wait and die with you. And I was like, oh my god, keep him. Wow. He is amazing. The moment there I wanted to punch her face in is when they're in the lorry and he's trying to start the lorry.
Yes.
And it happened. It's the same thing that happened in the car wash scene when everyone's telling him to hurry up and he looks behind and he's going, things are moving, and he goes, everything is moving. And you just, I loved it. But yes, I really wanted to punch her face in when she kept going, hurry up. And it's like, you could say, this is how brilliant Timothy Olyphant was, because he did everything we would do. He would he knows he can't lose his shit, but he's about to lose his shit. So instead he just grabs the steering wheel and is like, shut the fuck up. I'm trying to do this. And then she realizes what she's doing.
Yeah, and then he takes a deep breath and realizes the keys are still attached to the dead dude that fell out of the van. So he goes and gets them, but then he gets ambushed by crazy people with guns and the mechanic in the pit, and then he sets fire to him with the oil tray. Because it took me a second to realize. I didn't realize that's what it was until I saw it splash up on him, and then I was like, oh, okay. He sets fire to him, and then they just put pedal to the metal, and off they trot. They get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Until
big massive explosion. Do they hear a countdown?
I don't think. Oh no, they do. They hear it on the radio, don't they?
They hear a countdown because she says what happens at 1.
Because they stole the radio from it was on the side. Yeah.
And she says, but it's the wait, it's the pause. So when it does 3, 2, 1, and there's this massive pause, and then all of a sudden a big white flash of light behind them. They don't even look at it. It's behind them. And shit, they fucking nuked the place.
Yep. And then you get the following sound wave that is the thing that does the damage. So the sound wave comes off the back of it, and they are completely rolled around like rag dolls in this great big Peterbilt heavy 500-ton vehicle. And considering they're not strapped in, they
Managed to
got
stay in
out
there
of that all right.
Yeah, managed to stay in there pretty secure to walk out because the film literally ends with them walking on foot out of Dodge.
Towards a massive city on the horizon.
Yep. And little do they know that they have and have always been under the watchful eye of the military.
Yep. So we can only say that they're not infected, but whether they carry the virus or not is the issue.
At the end it says, oh god, I can't even pronounce that word. In it, I'm gonna spell it. INITIATE.
Initiate.
Thank you. Initiate containment protocol.
So I'm guessing they shot them. I mean, it's open to interpretation.
It's yeah. You make your mind up. Did they go off and ride into the sunset, have their baby, and live the rest of their lives in what the fuck just happened, or did the military get a hold of them? Because there is moments throughout the movie where this scope get locks on them. It's very you are very aware through all this movie. They are watched.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Yeah, the aerial footage is pretty cool where it does. I mean, bear in mind this is 2010, so Google Maps was a thing, and this sort of thing was readily available for people to look at on Google Maps. You could go from, satellite overview to the standard maps you used to get. You could see what satellite imagery looked like through Google Maps. So it was like that. It would find it, and then it would zone in on it.
Yeah.
And then you'd see it, but it like towards the end, that last bit, and then it zooms out, and you're just like, right, okay.
Yeah. Fuck.
That's where we are.
That's where we are. So it's up to your interpretation where they went to. I'm gonna put this out there. I fucking love this film. I absolutely adored this film. It didn't even feel like something from 2010.
It did really, really well at the box office. Well, I say really, really well. Horror movies always are questionable in what people consider good or not.
Yeah,
It had a 20 million budget, but it took 54 million at the box office, which for a horror movie that is a remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it, is bloody good.
And it's also like, regardless of the what you feel of the first one, watching it in 2025's eyes, it's still got George's name attached to it. A horror fan is going to kind of defend that name. So for people to give this a chance.
Yeah. I think a lot of people realize that the original was a stepping stone to build something more solid from.
Yeah.
For these people, not necessarily when George made it, but for the people who went and took this movie and for Breck Eisner and that redid it, they were looking at it through eyes of 30, 40 years later, which served the storyline better, in my opinion, because yes, there was politics involved. Yes, there were black vans. Yes, there was lots of Big Brother things, but that wasn't the main.
No.
The driven that you were in the same boat as all the people that were suspected to be infected because you were following them. You were like, okay, this could be me. Why are they doing this? Don't really understand. There was a lot, you were going through what they were going through, which is like again where I go back to the whole empathy thing with the first one. I just didn't get that.
No, and I get that. I was so invested in these people. Like I was invested in the relationship between sheriff and deputy. It was very brotherly. There was something so like family there. So like obviously the ending with him sacrificing himself and me like thinking I'm fucking big and clever, that he's not sick at all. But and the relationship between him and his wife was it was pure. It was honest as well. He wasn't scared to, and she wasn't scared to shout back. They weren't scared to shout back at each other, but it kind of like they would know they need to make. Do you know what I mean? It looked like a normal couple. The film opens with a song, "We'll Meet Again," performed by Johnny Cash.
Yeah,
and It's from the same album that provided The Man Comes Around, which opens the remake of GeorgeARomero's Dawn of the Dead from 2004, which are both on American 5, which is my favorite all-time Johnny Cash album because The Man Comes Around is my favorite all-time Johnny Cash song. It makes me cry every time I hear it. It's the last album he did before he died, and American 5, it's like a journey because you hear from the start to finish his progression of his illness, his loneliness. June's got. Oh, I love that. Sorry, that was me, Johnny Cash album. But I rant. But yeah, I love that album, and I love the fact that Johnny Cash was used in this movie. I was just doing a link. I actually just had information from that, so I was just thinking around.
What do you think the kill count was in this one?
Fuck. If it was 70 in the original, I'm gonna say it's got to be over the hundreds.
It's 103.
It still doesn't beat Claude.
No. Nope. I mean, if you combine the two, it does, but we're not going to. We're going to leave it at 73 for the first and 103 for the second. Yeah. But then again, that's not including the possibility that David and Judy didn't make it, and all the potential. That doesn't include any potential villagers or townspeople that you don't see. That is the kills that are on screen that you see.
If this was to have said it would be Claude's thingy, I would have totally went with it because there's a lot of deaths in here. And if you take out the fact that they took a whole fucking community out, then you probably are looking at.
They're not counting what could be left in when the bomb goes off because there's no telling. Nobody knows what the numbers would be. So if you were to add in that, you're probably looking at thousands.
Well, that's right, because they were actually executing people, the quarantine people anyway, if they were sick or not. So Christ knows, you have no idea how many was actually left by the time they were fucking finished with them. And for this one, I don't have a great deal of facts on it. And I put that down to just being a very good film.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it was. And I've always loved this film, and it's always been the fork scene for me, where is one of the most memorable standout moments with the fork.
Yes.
It is what it is, but that's true. That's why they use it for some of the DVD covers at the time, or sometimes they use it as one of the covers for the cover art of just you see one foot and then the fork being dragged along, and that's it. So
wow, the knife scene got me. That was just it was how quick thinking he was. Because if it was me, I'd still be trying to pull it out my hand in order to use that knife. He just literally pushes it through his hand to where the blade can be used, and he just whoosh, straight in the neck. But it shocked us at the same time, because you don't think like he's going to use that. Why would he use that? He's not going to use that. He did. No, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I'm gutted I watched it the way I did, because I wish I was like fully, like I was immersed in it, because I'm surprised how much I've remembered. This is my worry when we watch movies, is I get worried I'm not going to remember what I've just seen.
Hence, like me with this first one, I just don't really remember much of it. I don't. I think
it's fine.
I must have taken some stuff in, clearly, but like I just it's not for me.
No, and I think it's fine. I think it's fine not to. It is, like we've said, it is what it is. It has to be there in order for this one to be there.
Correct.
This feels like a Blob moment for me.
Right.
I've discovered something that I had no idea like was as good as it was. Because when you do think of the movies of the horror of like middle 2000, like of this time, I don't put it in high regard.
No, it was at the horror from around mid 2000s to late 2000 teens it was probably one of the worst decade for horror. You do get your bit of gems that come out of it, don't get me wrong, but it's probably hailed, if you break it down, it's probably hailed as one of the worst decades of modern day horror, because it was just trash that was coming out. So hence why this did so well at the box office, because it had substance, it had a stepping stone to go from, it had something that captured people. I mean, pre-pandemic, no one knew anything like that was coming. Now, if they were to release it now, I think it would be very different.
Yes, it very much, it reminded me when we watched the Neil Marshall Doomsday, and I was like, shit, you're on the two on the nose with that one. That's pretty scary. And that there's a lot of moments in that where I could relate back to our lockdown days, and now, the pandemic we went through. Fucking hell, we went through a pandemic. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing this episode. I think I got more animated towards the end when we were talking about this one.
Well, you'll be pleased to know Dan's Tedious Link is making I
was literally just about to ask you, because you did put online that you were going to struggle. Did you struggle, Dan?
It took me a little while to get there, but as soon as it clicked, I was like, got it. And I've got two. I've got one for the 73 and I've got one for the 2010.
Wow. Strap in, folks. Let's go.
Right. Are we ready?
Right.
For the 1973, the original name of this movie was codename Trixie. Trixie Mattel is a drag queen that owns a motel in Palm Springs. Palm Springs was home to Desi Arnaz Jr. and Lucille Ball, who owned Desilu Productions. Desilu brought Star Trek to TV.
Yes.
In 2009, the Star Trek movie starred Anthony Perkins' son, Oz, the famous director of Longlegs. Oz Perkins is now directing Stephen King's The Monkey, starring Elijah Wood.
Yes.
Elijah was in Lord of the Rings with Sean Austin. Sean Austin was in The Goonies. And Chris Columbus wrote the screenplay for The Goonies. Thank you.
Wow.
I got there.
You got there with Trixie Mattel as well. Jesus.
Now, the 2010 one, really easy. I kicked myself because I did the 2010 after that one.
Right.
And the 2010 one is Crazy star Radha Mitchell. Radha Mitchell was in Silent Hill with Sean Bean. Sean Bean was in Lord of the Rings with Sean Austin. Sean Austin was in Goonies. So that's where we went with the second one. But yeah,
wow.
I did it.
that 73 one is impressive.
I got there. It was longer than I wanted it to be, but I had to get there, and I was like, Palm Springs, Trixie Mattel, Trixie, because that was the original name of the 1973 code name Trixie.
Yeah, and also Desi and Lucy Ball. Wow.
Yeah, I was like,
they did famous people. Star Trek. They brought it to the telly.
Yeah, they did. They brought it to TV. Not a lot of people do know that. If it wasn't for Lucille Ball, you wouldn't have Star Trek.
You would not.
Godfrey and her became really good friends. She didn't understand what the hell it was. She thought it was a space western, and so she paid for it.
Love you, Lucy.
Yeah. So she literally went, yeah, go on then, because she was kooky and weird for the time, and
she was backed it crazy.
She backed it, and she said to the studios, I will withdraw all of my production, all the TV shows you have from my production company and me, if you don't let this go on TV.
Lucy knew her worth. It's one of my comfort things. If I'm like a bit I will watch episodes of I Love Lucy. I own them all. I love her. I think she's class.
I'm so proud. I've got Oz Perkins and Anthony Perkins. I've got Lucille Ball in there, Trixie Mattel in there.
The monkey.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I'm really looking forward to that.
And also, they've just got the release date for Toxie, the new Toxie as well, with Elijah Wood in it.
I've just seen something about that, and I haven't really been on my phone much today.
End of the year, they've finally had someone pick it up. And the Toxic Avenger is a trauma movie. For those of you who don't know, it's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. Lloyd Kaufman is an absolute genius and a madman at the same time. He is responsible for this dude, and he's just ace. Little Toxie.
I've got a feeling we may do Toxic Avenger.
I think it's on the list.
I think we may do it. But next week, we're kind of right. So we're going down a 70s feel, but in a 2024 production. Am I right in that? Yeah?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. We are doing, and we're kind of late to this. We probably should have done this last year or the year before when it kind of, But hey, Who said we had to do things in order?
Exactly.
We are covering Late Night with the Devil. Gonna have to learn the guy's name.
David Dalmatian. There you go.
Say it again.
David Dalmatian.
That I'm never gonna get it. And I'm not gonna offend him by trying to.
Just call him David. It's fine.
Yeah, we're going to go down Late Night with the Devil. I'm really looking forward to kind of exploring not only this movie, the themes of it, how it was shot, because holy shit, it was amazing, but also where this kind of programming comes from.
Yeah.
Like, I am so looking forward to that side.
Yeah. I've watched it twice now.
I've only watched it the once.
I watched it the first time and I fell asleep in the last 10 minutes because I was so tired and exhausted because I was doing shows back to back. So I then went back and watched it about a couple of months later. And I completely missed that last sequence. So watching it again and seeing that last sequence, I was quite taken aback. So everything that I dislike about these kind of, it's not even a mockumentary because they don't even allude to that, but
it's almost a real-time movie. I don't even know if that's a thing, but it is shot in real time.
Yeah,
you are watching it in real time. Like there's no the advert, the breaks that you get that he gets on his show is what you're getting as well. It's the time. I'll explain it all in better detail next week.
Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to it because I know this comes from like a long lineage of late night talk shows, exorcisms, people who have, possibly going to a bit of the Warrens, because I get that like little feeling of them as well, even though they've got fuck all to do with this film, but I still get a feeling of them amongst it. But yeah, excited. Really excited. But this has been the Crazies.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm so glad we did it. I'm so glad we did it. We have a good list this year so far, up to now. It's going well. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited. But for us, so this has been the Crazies. Next week's Late Night with the Devil. This episode drops on Nerdy Up North's YouTube channel on Monday. The audio for this episode drops at 6 o'clock on a Monday. There you go.
Surprise.
Yeah. I generally thought for a minute there my Bluetooth turned off.
No, I didn't say anything. I'm going to start miming now to play.
Don't. Yes, so if you want to find us, if you I don't know how you are, but if you don't, we're on YouTube. We're on the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel. If you want to search us on anywhere, any audio platform where you get your podcast from, you need to search Monsters Up North podcast. You'll find us with the Frankenstein logo. We're right there, right there. The socials and the links for Bleeding Marvelous, Monsters Up North, and Nerdy Up North are where done? Down there. Down there. They're down there. I think that's it. I don't know. I can't remember. Yeah, please remember, like, share, and subscribe if you are on YouTube. If you are listening to us through audio, and whatever platform you're using, let us know. Leave us a comment, leave us a review, leave us a comment on the video. Let us know if you've watched either of them, what you think of them. Are you going to watch them? If you do want to watch them, Netflix has the remake. YouTube has the
original.
Yep. Or did you say they were on Amazon?
They're also on Amazon Prime as well. I think they might be on like Shudder or somewhere like that.
Easy to find. I have been using the Discord a bit more lately just to put in, what we're doing. And I know Paul set a, I want to say challenge, but a little competition for people who do use the Nerdy Up North Discord if they want to see if they can come up with because I've dropped the Mistress of Ceremonies name, and they could coming up with new ones. So I need to have a look through and see what was actually put out there, because have a look. I'm gonna have a look and see if there's any creative ones to use. But yeah, that is us. Is there anything else left to say? Do you know, I got this ending down so good, and now I fucked it all up by making changes. Well, if there's nothing else left to say, Say goodbye, Dan.
Oh. Bye.
Stay spooky, everyone. Bye.